I went to help out at my boyfriend's nonprofit the other day. He was rolling out new phones. I had the day off due to arbitrary holidays at my company and decided to bring him lunch. I happen to be software support customer service and well known for my customer service skills, so when everything went to hell I answered dumb questions, e.g., how do I add my email? Which password do I need to enter, while my boyfriend deals with the bigger problems. The next day I'm at work and go on break only to come back to a gorgeous flower arrangement that was delivered while I was gone. I know he's the only one to send me flowers, so I assume it's from him. When I open the note and it reads, "'Cause you helped me with my stupid effing users." And nothing else. As previously mentioned before, senior tech support for the fruit-based company. This one happened just a few hours ago. There were only 20 minutes left before the line closed. Customers can call until 15 minutes before closing, and this call came in with 20 seconds to spare. Customer: "Hi, I've updated my phone to the latest version and I've lost a folder with a bunch of notes. Can you help?" Usual fruit care speech to assure that help is on the way and screen sharing offer. We check the settings for notes, all good. Check her accounts that are syncing to notes, all good. We go into notes. She has 4 different folders for each notes account: iCloud, 2 Gmail, and an Outlook. Me: "So, what folder is missing?" Customer: "The on my iFruit folder. It had about 30 notes." Me: "Okay. Can you scroll down a bit?" She scrolls down and lo and behold, all the notes she wanted were there. Customer: "Oh my god, how did I not think of this? I feel so stupid." Me: "It's quite alright, we sometimes don't think about the simpler stuff. Have a nice evening." And 2:30 minutes later, I get to sit back, relax and enjoy the 10 minutes of looking at a clear call queue before leaving. In high school, about 2 to 3 years ago, I worked at a locally owned computer repair shop that was praised for our quality custom-built computers and excellent customer service. We had one older lady who bought a new Windows 10 desktop because her 15 to 20, not exaggerating, year-old computer stopped working. Quite frankly, my co-workers and I were shocked it lasted that long. Anyways, she picked up her computer and a couple of hours later she calls saying her mouse doesn't work and she's pretty fed up. I was the one who answered, so I walked her through the basics. Make sure the USB is tightly secured. Try plugging it into another port. Is the light at the bottom on? Stuff like that. After about 5 to 10 minutes of troubleshooting, I asked her to please bring the computer back in and we can take a quick look at it for her. When she stopped in, we took the computer in the back and lo and behold, the mouse worked just fine. We then called her to the back room to show her that the mouse was working fine, and we asked if she could play with it for a couple of minutes so we can see if we can recreate the issue. What I saw brought me to a complete loss of words. The lady took the mouse, lifted it off the table and pointed it at the cursor on the screen and started to move the mouse to what she wanted to click on. See? It's not working again. You're lying to me, so I'll have to buy a new one. Several years ago, but this century at least, the company I worked for at the time, contacted software development out to a company in India called Value Labs. We ran a virtual infrastructure and they hit virtual desktops to do their work via RDP. After a while, one of our dev servers had about 10 GB of space disappear and it was pretty tight. The dev environment manager came to me to figure it out. It turned out, one of the developers had pulled down 10 GB of music, hidden it on a share and was streaming it over the RDP session. Rather than just delete this collection of Hindi music, I decided to get creative. I wrote a batch file that collected all the file names, and instead of deleting, replaced the content of the file with the crazy frog. The total size when done, only used 250 megabytes. The dev env manager was worried, asking what happens if the guy complains. I explained that it would never happen, who complains that their illegally copied music library stored on the server owned by the company that your company is contacted to has been corrupted? Who would they complain to, and how would they keep their job after admitting to illegally storing copyrighted music on a client's servers? My only regret is that I never saw the look on the guy's face when he realized how busted he was. Some time ago I inherited a server room with a bunch of so-called servers. Sadly, most of them didn't have any redundant components, backups, or UPS. I had my hands full to upgrade as many as possible to minimum business grade specs, with the least amount of money the CFO wanted to make available. Well, really, he didn't want to spend any money, TBH. One day we had another power outage and most of the hardware had rebooted, as there still wasn't any UPS in that room. I am looking at this Windows 2000 Advanced server, which had a RAID 1 configuration, but nevertheless was showing me a friendly blue screen. Another "have you tried to turn if off and back on again" sequence didn't solve the problem, so I proceeded to investigate the issue a little more, as I had users calling me, asking what happened to that server. While the server had a RAID card, it no longer had an optical drive, so I couldn't boot off the install CD. This was also so long ago, it didn't want to boot at all from an USB stick. The simple solution was to run a generic chkdsk, which was supposed to fix the issue. Running RAID 1 did actually save my bacon, as I also didn't, yet, have a tested and reliable backup. I took out one of the two drives, which luckily was SATA, and added it as a second drive to my workstation. I was then able to run the chkdsk on that drive from there. It finished fixing all the errors, and I was ready to plug it back into the server. But first I took out the other drive, which had an unfixed copy of the data, and I didn't want to risk rebuilding the RAID, if the fix didn't work. To my utter surprise, the box did indeed boot from the fixed drive, as if nothing ever happened. Once it did, I decided to put the other drive back in, and rebuilt the mirror. A few short hours later that was also done, and the machine was back to where it was before the power went. I immediately went to the CFO's office and told him we needed UPS, and backup solutions for all machines. He agreed that would be necessary, even though he still wasn't overly convinced to throw money at this problem. Sadly, I lost power 2 more times before I could set up a permanent solution, which forced me to verify my above system was functional to get the server back online. I also upgraded to Windows 2003 server then, which was slightly more resilient. Oh yeah, I also don't work in IT anymore. Those were headaches I didn't need on an ongoing basis, anymore. Back when the earth was cooling and much earlier in my IT career, I had a manager who was a complete busybody control freak. Ralph insisted that we produce a weekly report on what we did. I'd do a summary one-pager which I'd print out over the network to his desktop printer. This was in the NT4/Win95 years. Needing a reason to moan, he always believed you managed by complaining about something, anything, because praise was apparently bad. He berated me for producing a summary only. He also hated that I'd just pushed to his printer. So he said he wanted details. The week before, I had gotten my new PalmPilot Pro. It had the ability to store tasks in Outlook, so I started recording everything. Plugged in a keyboard, task recorded. Plugged in a network cable, task recorded. For 3 weeks, the status reports jumped to about 10 to 15 pages each in a nice table output. Conceding defeat, Ralph advised that a one-page summary was fine. So I wrote a macro template that would just generate randomly believable numbers and automatically pump it to his printer. The rest of my time there, paperwork didn't interfere with my actual work again. So this is from about 15 years ago, before the implementation of Lansweeper or other such network infrastructure inventory apps. Corporate, turned out to be 2 idiots checking off a box, had the bright idea to send out a spreadsheet to all of its locations to fill out needed information on every server we had. Oh yes, I still think of these server reports every time I see the TPS reports in Office Space to this day. My personal area of responsibility had about 18 such machines on this list. The spreadsheet asked a lot of static information like amount of RAM and hard drive size. Then several things that changed almost daily like free space on data share, number of databases running and number of possible users. That is basically a guess. It was plain idiotic and time consuming. Several months later all IT managers were meeting at corporate and the man who thought up this brainchild Excel report gave a 10-minute speech on the value of this information and then asked for questions. I raised my hand. Me, so what good is it? Speaker, what do you mean? Me, well, this report is all well and good but honestly why do you need to know, let's say, how much free space is on my server? If it is full are you going to automatically ship me a bigger server or maybe bigger drives to install? Speaker, well, no of course not. Me, then I repeat. What good is it? Why do I need to spend my time filling out this information that will not create an action item to resolve any actual problem? This immediately spurred almost every manager there to speak out on their own problems with the report. 2 weeks later it was removed from our responsibilities. I hate busy work. So this was years ago when I was frontline tech support for a US ISP. Sweet elderly lady calls in to set up her email, either IncredImail or Outlook Express, I can't recall which but they're both literally the same. I walk her through getting into the settings just like I've done hundreds of times before. She's just not following along, as people often do. We get to the 20-minute mark, so I change my tactic and try to get her into the settings a different way. There's not many ways, mind you, but I try all the same. We get to the 30-minute mark, and I'm drained. Late for my lunch break, too. So I change my tactic once again. Is there anyone else there that I might be able to talk to? She says my grandson is here if you'll talk to him. At this point, I'll happily speak with anyone else, so I tell her if he's okay speaking to me, I'm okay speaking to him. He says hello and tells me his name. He must be 7 or 8 years old. Hooray. I think to myself this is going to be another 30 minutes. I start where I did with the grandma, and he's to the email settings as quick as anyone. I walk him through inputting all of the settings and whatnot. Within 3 minutes, I'm sending a test message to his grandma's email address and tell him to reply so we can confirm incoming and outgoing both work. He gets my message and replies with hi. I then notice in the from line that the email is from none other than Spongebob Squarepants. I tell him I just need to let his grandma know it's working, so he puts her on the line. I let her know how great of a job he did and the call is over. I never told her what he'd done, it was too funny, and I'd had it with that call by then.